Monday, August 25th to order at 6:05. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Peter Talbot.
Here.
Jim Jenks.
Here.
Fiona Pearson.
Here.
John Mylone.
Here.
Don Walsh.
Here.
David Belliver.
Here.
Greg Wolf.
Here.
Trish Kramer. Here. Dina Allard. Quorum is present.
Please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, our first item on the agenda tonight is the adoption of referendum projects for fiscal year 25-26, annual capital expenditure budget and call for referendum. So we will tackle that first. My feeling is that regarding item number 4, the fiscal year 25-26 annual capital expenditure budget, we have a deadline that extends into November, so I think we will table that item to a later date and take up some of the other year one projects at that time. One of my thoughts behind that is we still want to do a facilities meeting. I had said a couple times earlier on in the budget process that we wanted to do a meeting in late August, early September to discuss some of the buildings, mainly Chapman School, Darcy School, and what we're going to do with the property at North Brooksville next to Norton School, and have a discussion about that. I don't know whether that's going to tie into any capital budget items, but I think we should have that discussion right around the same time we're doing that. So my plan is to table item number 4, and then we'll get into 5 and 6. But the one that's going to take the most time tonight is item number 3, and I'll turn it over to Mr. Kimball to kick off our discussion with that.
Sure. So thank you, Mr. Chair. You do have before you on the summary sheet, and a few things have moved around since our last meeting with respect to those 7 items currently in bold, still under consideration for referendum. I know there were some discussions last time, namely around splash pad, where we just wanted to kind of follow up on that conversation a little bit as requested by some council members, get a little more background to see before the council makes their final determination on whether or not to send that to referendum. There are also a few other new items from that last meeting where we were introduced to the turf field replacement proposal at $800,000. You see that there towards the bottom of the page. And also another new item from that last meeting, or in the intervening time as proposed, per Peter's email earlier this week, of the $2 million proposed for open space land acquisition. So I will say, and you can take them in any order you want, Mr. Chair, but we do have, as requested, we brought in Kevin Grindle from BNL, who's been working with us over the last few years on the splash pad project. So we were able to get Kevin, appreciate him coming on very short notice. And I guess I would just request if we do want to take that up earlier, that would be great, because he is here and ready to kind of answer any questions you guys might have on the splash pad.
Yeah, that would be great. And as a preamble to that, I just want to say that after following our meeting the other night, where we had not included that as a referendum item, I had a conversation with Sean, and there was some disappointment on the behalf of staff who had put a lot of time into this project. And I said, I am perfectly okay with having the full council vote on it at the special meeting on the 25th. I think it's warranted, and because part of it is state money, a good portion of it is state money that we're receiving, but it will require a referendum vote in November. So I wanted to give the full council a chance to ask questions and make an informed decision, and we will give an up or down before we leave here this evening with approving or disapproving of all of the referendum items. So with that as our preamble, yeah, we'll, yeah, do you want to do it as a, bring up the resolution that's in now and do it as part of discussion? Or do you want to discuss it and then do it as a, kind of do all of them in one fell swoop at the end?
I think in practice, because the verbiage is so lengthy, we typically don't read through the entire resolutions. We make a motion to suspend reading the entire resolutions. I think in the interest of time, maybe just going right into the presentation and Q&A would be fine with me. It's up to your preference either way.
Is that okay with colleagues then? Okay, that's what we will do.
Great, so let's turn it over. I'll turn it over to Andrew, and Kevin can take it from here.
All right. For the record, my name is Kevin Grendel, associate with the firm of Barton & LaJudas. Forgive the lack of presentation preparation. I've had about 3 hours to prep for this evening, so I will be shooting from the hip on some of these items. And forgive me, I had intended to watch or at least listen to a recording of your previous meeting to get to kind of drill down into the immediate concerns. Once again, didn't have time to do that. And just putting that out, kind of full disclosure, I'm coming in a little cold, just knowing that you did have concerns, and I would be happy to address them this evening. Ultimately, the project that you have before you has been well thought out by myself and my colleagues over the past couple years. As Sean has said, we've been working closely with staff, be it both Sean and Andrew here with us this evening, as well as the engineering staff, be it Merritt Kemet, and have been thinking about this a number of different ways, looking at a pass-through or once-through system on a splash pad, also looking at a recirculating system on a splash pad. Those two primary design options are: the initial one would be acquiring water from regional water, and as the name suggests, so once through, pass it through once, and then send the rest of it to the sewer plant for treatment. And we had looked at that, investigated that. I had meetings, or Merrick and I had meetings with the Sewer Commission, and based upon the flows calculated on these type systems and the system that we're designing here, those flows during peak use are somewhere between 26 and 40,000 gallons a day. And the Sewer Commission was not agreeable to entertaining those flows coming into the plant. So that was an early on conversation we had, kind of checking the boxes as far as feasibility. That being an initial point of interest for ourselves. There is a cost savings measure on a once-through system. We would not be spending the town's tax dollars on treatment structures, on pumps and equipment, and we would be passing the water through once and sending it to the sewer system. Again, the Sewer Commission was not in favor of that. So subsequent to those conversations and that dialogue with the Sewer Commission, we went back to the drawing board and started investigating in more urgency a recirculating system, which is what we have proposed and what you have in front of you this evening. So that recirculating system uses water effectively very, very similar to a public pool in system. Granted, I am simplifying things in some matter here, but think of it, and as the state does regulate it, they regulate it as a public pool. So Connecticut Department of Public Health regulates a recirculating system. And I should have gone back and said that the Department of Environmental or Energy and Environmental Protection, DEP, regulates a once-through system. So once we started looking at a recirculating system, looking at kind of the provisions or parameters through the Public Health Code as far as public pools are concerned, and then working with some of the industry vendors. The vendor that we did choose, and as part of the bid package here, is a company by the name of Vortex. Vortex is an industry leader in splash pads and also recirculating systems in regards to splash pads. That system, as was designed by the vendor, is what we've packaged together, vetted by our electrical and mechanical engineers on our team, and then included it within the design package that we sent out to bid. So With that, kind of the nuts and bolts of that system would be with it being co-located adjacent to the aquatic center, utilizing the electrical services from the aquatic center, pulling power out of that building into what is called, what Vortex terms a dome pack, effectively a packaged system where all the mechanicals and pumps are located, bringing power from the aquatic center into that dome pack, and then also bringing water from the water service that currently serves the aquatic center, stubbing that service off and bringing another line into the splash pad. From there, there's a 2,000-gallon tank, and that 2,000-gallon tank serves as the reservoir for the splash pad. So that 2,000-gallon tank is effectively the pool water, if you will. That water gets passed through filtration systems, very, very similar to a pool, public pool, sand filters, UV filters, and then through a packaged treatment system as well. Again, very, very similar chemical treatments to a public pool, making sure that that water that is being recycled and recirculated is chemically treated and cleaned to then be pushed back through the splash pad. One of our initial questions was how much of that water is recirculated versus how much of that water is evacuated based upon effectively splash, effectively carry off by users, effectively wet kids leaving the splash pad, splashing. Obviously, it's in the name, splash pad. The intention is to, have water go on children and around, and then also by evaporation. And generally, it's industry standard between 5 and 10% of the water is evacuated every day. Effectively, if it's a windy day, up to 10%. If it's a heavy population load, up to 10% again. But generally, it's between that 5 and 10% of those 2,000 gallons leave the splash pad every day and get replaced with clean water through the connection to regional water. So once there is a drain system so that if the splash pad is not operating in off hours, that drain system collects rainwater and so on and discharges it to the storm sewer. And then when that pad is running, there is also a sewer connection for backwash, filter cleaning, and so on. Again, very, very similar to any public pool that you or I would have, as well as any pool you and I would have, as well as a public pool system that is already co-located at that aquatic center. So also taking advantage of the bathrooms, restrooms, shower facilities at the aquatic center currently, going through the regulations for DPH, hitting a lot of the points there already because of the current pool that we're locating this adjacent to. So location itself, again, immediately adjacent, I should say, also taking advantage of a small wedge of land that is generally not used currently. And what we're looking to do is leverage that area, effectively a higher value use of that adjacent land area to the pool, and then also locating it close to existing facilities within the aquatic center, adjacent to parking, and adjacent to water and sewer hookups. So trying to be as cost-effective and as efficient with utility services and location within the Bartland Park proper, so that people who are using the aquatic facility also have an opportunity to access the splash pad, and also looking to provide some means of security and access control, leveraging the existing aquatic facility, as well as gated entrances to that facility, so that there is not a open door policy, if you will, as far as overall use of the splash pad. Working through hours of operation and kind of the operations and maintenance and management items to try and nail down kind of the devils in the details. But I believe over the past couple of years, the plan that you have in front of you is a very well thought out plan, recognizing we did explore both opportunities for flow through and a research system, as well as being mindful of the tax dollars at work as far as trying to keep it as cost effective and efficient to the user and the operator as possible. So, like I said, obviously there's a lot of things that I may have missed not having listened to some of your concerns previously, but that's the reason I was able to attend this evening. So please, with any questions or any comments, I'm here to answer them.
First of all, thank you very much for being here on extremely short notice. It's much appreciated, but the timing was was such that like I said in the preamble, it was a late arrival, so, and when one of my colleagues had asked about having the consultant, we thought it was important, and we truly appreciate you being here. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague who asked about potentially having the consultant here. Mr. Milone, thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Kevin, thanks for coming tonight. It's a big help. And knowing that this was back on our agenda, Peter, I did take the time to do a little more research myself. I'm happy to hear from you as well. And I have, coming into the room, I have more of a comfort level than I had before. It was a lack of knowledge last time that caused me to be concerned. But I do still have a few questions. So just a basic design question. On the plan you had on number 8, you called that a shade structure, and I think that's where you're putting the treatment structure. I assume there'll be a revision to that moves that somewhere else or
Yep.
something? So,
Yep.
Okay.
Late revision, the treatment structure itself has been both literally and figuratively a moving target. Trying to kind of locate that in close proximity to utilities, so it's the lowest cost utility service connection, while not impacting the user group of the splash pad, so that has moved on almost every iteration. Currently, John, as you did indicate, there's a conflict between the shade structure, so yes, those will be moving.
and now, there was some confusion, at least in my mind, as to what we were looking at as a budget. Now, this budget that we're looking to act on tonight, and this may be a question for you, Sean, is the plan with the treatment system, that was the difference essentially?
Yeah, I appreciate the question, and it was a little confusing last time. If you remember, we put both on option 1 and
Yeah.
option 2, and so what we were recommending as staff is the full option, which does require referendum because we have a bid in hand for $1.3 million. So the project budget, if you will, for the appropriation we're asking for, we put 1.45 million to give you a little more buffer in case anything else comes up along the way, some contingency. So that is in addition, and it's an important point that I may not have made last time. The council already approved $865,000 of this project. At the time, that was $500,000 of a steep grant, an additional $365,000 initially from ARPA dollars, if you recall. And then because we, through all these iterations and back and forth with DEEP and DPH, knew that this was not going to be shovel in the ground before that money had to be committed by December 31st, the council was amenable to switching that funding out, and we put bond appropriation for the remainder of the 865 at that time, I don't know, 6 months ago or within the last year. So what we're asking for now is an additional, so that is $865,000 is already appropriated. We're asking for an additional $585,000. In the meantime, we also have another source of funding, which is $150,000 that the state put into the budget for this project this year. So all of that, back to the resolution that I told Peter we didn't need to read, it is spelled out, and we can take some time to go through it should you, be ready to advance this. There's a lot of explanation of where the source of funding comes from. In the end, because we still used a little bit of ARPA money for the design piece of this, I think it's $72,500, the entire amount that you'd be approving for bonding is about $727,000, and the other, it's almost 50-50, because the other 700 and change is grant funds, either ARPA, STEEP, or now the state grant of $150,000 from this year's budget. So I know that was a long answer, but that it's basically half funded by state grants.
Okay. And then the budget now doesn't include eliminating some things because of value engineering. We've got the original plan as it was conceived. Is that correct?
So, right, the other option that I had presented last week was, again, not one we were recommending, but it was the most you could spend without it going to referendum. And
Okay.
it would require value engineering,
Okay.
which I know Kevin had been working on back and forth with the bidder as to whether there are options. And in the end, we felt those were too compromising of the overall project to be recommended. But feel free to expand on that if you want.
Well said, we did explore them, and none of them were significant enough to determine they were of value.
And I have one last question, and probably another colleague might answer because they were the one who brought it out. I think it was Don who brought attention to an article. There was an article about some issues with the water quality for recirculating systems, et cetera. And there's this particular item called cryptosporidium or whatever it is that, according to this article, isn't removed with chlorine and other things in the system. Is that a concern, or is that not a concern? It's the,
That is a discussion amongst the industry. I'll say I do not have the expertise to weigh in specifically of whether it is or is not a concern. From the people I've talked to in the industry and from the suppliers, they've indicated that there's a small percentage chance that organism can and has contributed to contamination within splash pads. There are kind of operations plans to minimize that impact, but at this point, I will say that as with any public water system, public pool, there are a low chance of those organisms. I cannot say that they would be zero.
now, we'll have someone maintaining this system on a regular basis. I assume, like, they maintain the pool filter, et cetera. So this will require regular checking and maintenance and checking chemical.
That is exactly right. As routine as the checking and chemical and treatment and testing of a pool, the splash pad would be the same. And that is also, the Vortex system comes along with a 3-ring binder of operations. And that would be something that we would be providing to the ops team at the Aquatic Center currently, and that would just be one more of the items that the Aquatic Center would be overseeing.
Thanks again for coming tonight, Peter. Thank you for asking, and thank you for coming. It's been very helpful. Appreciate it.
Mr. Walsh, we'll come down the line.
Thank you. Thank you for answering some of those questions. That's appreciated, because I did read that article as well. And it's good to know that we will have a specialist, I guess, who will oversee making sure the chemicals are correct and testing it each day.
That is correct.
Part of the thing, I mean, I also read, and maybe Sean can answer this, that with recirculating, our insurance costs could go a little higher because of have you checked into that? One of the things I read in an article was about that, but I just would like to check into that just to see.
I can certainly check into it further. I have not myself checked into that.
All right, the other thing is, yeah, I mean, kids see water falling down, they're gonna open up their mouths, and I'm assuming that's just like if they swallowed pool water, and they might get a little, yeah.
It's exactly the case. To combat the contamination issue, there are the typical array of warning signs that say do not drink, do not so on, do not so forth. Really, drinking and consumption becomes the biggest concern. I'm saying that, acknowledging that, having a 4-year-old at home myself, I cannot tell you how I could possibly have a 4-year-old not drink some water.
Right.
So we are,
Is there a need for like an outdoor shower for the kids to do before and after? Like even just like a pull string or something that they wash themselves off, or do you, I mean, I'm just, another place where I read, they said, they recommend it just because if they have the bacteria already on them, if they rinse off whatever under, but.
We do have potable water source coming in. I could very well investigate that. I've not done so at this time. Again, leveraging the bath and shower facilities in the center already. That was where that conversation kind of began and ended. But to your point, an outdoor shower is something that, obviously everybody that goes to a beach or so on is kind of used to being able to have that convenience before they get back in the car. I can ask the vendor and see if there's a provision for that.
Not for any extra money, though.
Of course not.
The last thing, the grass area, we were told that's going to be natural grass. Is there a reason why it's natural and not like a turf? If we approve the turf, maybe we can get a couple extra yards of that. But I just curious as to, because mowing a lawn like that and trying to keep there's going to be little grass things, and it's going to get all over the place.
Cannot dispute any of what you just said. Effectively, the reason that it's a lawn and not synthetic is purely dollars and cents. Our goal was to put money into the splash pad and not the surrounding.
So it's a lot more money, or?
It is more money, but again, that is a conversation. We could propose that to the bidder and see if there's a bid alternate that is within budget, because to your point, there is obviously long-term maintenance costs associated. That's something that can be discussed.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get wear and tear like a football field would get, but I think if we have to get somebody in mowing that lawn and picking up all the grass clippings and everything every day, that could be more tedious than anything, so. All right, thank you very much.
Before I forget, I'm going to call on Mr. Veliber to see if he had questions, because without you sitting there and being on a screen, at some point invariably I'm going to forget to call on you. So
Oh, no problem. Can you hear me okay?
yes,
Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I appreciate the questions that Don and John have already asked. I'm sure everyone's gonna have good questions too. My only question was, the last meeting, we talked about the site, plan, that the kiddie pool had some letters and some stuff with it. And I'm trying, is what we're talking about now for approximately, I think, 727,000, give or take, does that still exclude turning the kiddie pool into kind of a splash pad? Or does that put that back into the original, we back to that, what was shown on that little plan?
Yeah, I can answer that. At this point, that entire total, the 1.45 million, does not include the kiddie pool renovations. In the capital plan, there are some, I think, small dollars out in out years to make some changes to the kiddie pool, but not full-fledged like the original concept of potentially doing an indoor splash pad that we weren't able to get within the budget.
The concern with the kiddie pool was bringing water indoor versus outdoor and the logistics of multiple pumps, multiple piping, some items that you shut down for the winter versus some items that can run year-round. It was effectively, there was no economy in scale in combining the two systems.
Okay, that was what I thought you were gonna say. I just wanted to make sure that when we're talking about this new number, we're talking about a project that does not include, at least turning the kiddie pool into a splash pad. We may have to do some work to the kiddie pool, but it's not gonna be part of that splash pad. And also, what's the estimated sort of like lifespan, annual, time frame for this project? I mean, we're looking at, obviously, what, May through October? When do we think we can open it up? When do we think we shut it down?
Generally speaking, when I was looking at the pass-through flows and working with the sewer department or the sewer commission, I believe I was targeting a limited usage from May 15th to June 15, and then daily use through June 15 through Labor Day, with a limited use into September, mid to late September. But again, I'm going off of memory there. Ultimately, it was June, July, August was a daily, and then there was some amount of shoulder of season flows in May and September.
Yeah, if I could just echo that
We're looking at 4 months.
about that. Yeah, Dave, if I could just add one piece that we do have, Cheshire has a bit of an advantage over some communities that have put their splash pad adjacent to seasonal pools, is obviously seasonal pools. We have a year-round pool, so if we have, our facility will be open year-round, and if we have warm enough weather early enough where you're confident that you could have it open, you might be able to, squeeze a little time before and after, whereas those that are tied directly with just seasonal pools, where they're just not open until a specific date and then they're shut down at a specific date, you really have no flexibility once you've, let the staff go or the lifeguards are no longer there, whatever. We have a little bit of an opportunity to be, to kind of see how the forecast is going before we actually shut it down, but just putting that up.
Okay, thank you very much.
thanks, David. Ms. Pearson, thank you.
I too thank you for your time coming at such short notice, and for your clarifications, and I appreciate all the questions that my fellow counselors have asked. I am now supportive of this. I know we had questions regarding the grant before. I think you convinced us regarding the recirculating water. If our pools are using this already, this is something that I understand the concerns, and certainly there are always concerns in any public pool, but it's clear that the community has been interested in this splash pad for some time. I know that when Weston and Sampson conducted their analysis of the park and the renovations at Bartlam Park, a splash pad was at the top of the list. When you looked at that word circle, splash pad was right there in the middle, so that's something that folks in town have very much wanted. And I was not supportive, we talked earlier about the value engineered options. I was not supportive of those cutbacks. I don't think we should be sacrificing quality at this time. So I would be supportive of this. And I thank you again for your time and providing these clarifications.
Mr. Jinks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you again for being here. I mean, for only working this for 3 hours, it was a good presentation, so.
I appreciate it.
But the only question I have about, I wasn't really so concerned about the, sort of the, I mean, obviously I shared some of the concern of the recirculation versus, the other option, but my concern wasn't so much on the project itself from your standpoint, the engineering, it was more about, timing and, we want this to be successful and, do we do it this year, do we do it next year? Can you just remind us again, Andrew, about the horizon we have for this grant again? Is it just 2 years from now? Is it 1 year?
Sure,
from
no,
now?
so you have 2 years on the STEEP grant, and then you have 1 year on the new $150,000. So that money needs to be expended by June 30th of 2026.
Right.
The new 150 from the state.
Okay. So we want, I mean, like I said, I would like to see it be successful, so it may make sense to do this year, and if for some reason it doesn't work out, we try again next year. Gives us time to push it through, hopefully push it through. Quick question about the recirculation, though, as far as in the off-season. I'm assuming that there doesn't need to be sort of water circulating through in the off-season. It just kind of gets flushed out or something and shut down, and there's no electricity or water usage in the wintertime?
That's exactly right. No different than, your homeowner's pool or kind of lawn sprinkler system.
Right,
Lines are blown out and shut down for the season. All the operating hardware, the pumps and so on, shut down and then reconditioned in the spring. So, again, and all that's covered within the operations plan from Vortex, but very, very simple system, and that's the reason I can reference this dome pack, effectively a proprietary name, but it's where all the equipment is housed. All that is subsurface, so that is at grade, and then all very well contained, so that you're not chasing lines here and there. So
right. Okay, thanks. I endorse Don's idea of maybe trying to reuse some of the turf, or we may have a lot of it laying around, so.
There's some on the roof, isn't there over at the high school? Or is that gone?
Some of the, based on the recent testing, some of the field is in decent shape. Maybe we can use some of that stuff. Why not?
Across the street.
Ms. Kramer?
Thank you for being here, and for being so candid and clear with us on what's about to happen. This splash pad, does it only run when kids are using it and then it turns off? Is it motion activated? Can they press something and it turns off and on as it's being used, so it's not just constantly recycling water?
Yep, that is correct. I believe we had discussed two activators in there. So yes, and it goes through a cycle so that all the amenities, all the features don't come on at once. You hit the activator and it's a series that pushes water through each one, more of an interactive experience. So I believe it's a 2-minute cycle, but don't quote me on that. The intention would be that there is an opportunity for kids to interact and engage with each feature as it goes, and then things shut down so that when there are not kids at play, there's no water being used.
The good thing about going last is your colleagues take all the great questions and answer them, or get them answered, so. But I will make a statement, as did Ms. Pearson, that I would not have been in favor of this in any way, shape, or form if it was value engineered. We've had too much bad luck with value engineering, which is a nice way of saying doing things on the cheap. So I will support this project as it's presented later in the evening. And again, we thank you for your time and short notice for being here. It's much appreciated.
Thank you all very much.
So I think what we'll do, since we're kind of on a roll, is we'll go through the talking portion, and then we'll do the motions, the seconds, and it'll probably shorten the time of discussion, and then we can vote on each one of the 7 projects that we'll be discussing. Going in no particular order, the next one I have is the item that is on page 62 of your packets, which is the land acquisition and preservation. Again, that, I apologize, that was a late one that was added after our meeting. I did have conversations with a couple counselors about it. My thought behind this was that we should be in a position to act quickly if we need to, and not hold special referendums if we wanted to do a purchase of a property or buy some land that would be used for preservation. So I've added that to the referendum list. And Sean, do you know what is currently in our acquisition budget and whether that includes the roughly 100,000 that we'll get from Fen Road eventually? Sorry.
Looking at Jim here.
So, yeah, the Fed,
Thanks, Jim.
I'm sorry. I didn't bring the balances with me, but I want to say off the top of my head, we probably have shy of $100,000 in our land accounts right now. It does not include the 100, I think a little over 100 from the Fen Road property, which I believe you can appropriate if you need to for that
Okay.
purpose.
And again, the thought behind this was we've been hearing a lot about development in the town, and I know that there are some residents that are concerned with the rapid growth of the town. This would put us in a position to act quickly, and that was the thought process. But happy to hear from counselors on this. Mr. Walsh.
Thank you for that. And that does make some sense. I just have a quick question, though. If we approve, whether it's $1 or $2 million or whatever it is, and it passes the referendum, does it still require, if we find a piece of land, that it doesn't have to be approved in referendum after the fact? So like if we find a piece of property at $700,000 that we want to purchase, is that up to just the council then, once this has been approved? So that is, okay.
And I'll
That's been-
defer to,
That's been the practice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
yeah, this is something, we used to, kind of on a fairly regular basis, put money into a land
I remember
acquisition
that.
account.
Yeah.
And we haven't done it for a while. But I think with the way things are going, I think it's prudent of the council to take a look at this and have something in the hoppers that we can act upon quickly,
Yeah.
should we need to.
I'm not so sure I'm in favor of 2 million. I might be in favor of 1 million, but I'd like to know if we do use the million, what the average taxpayer's costs would be on an annual basis once that gets into debt service. Do you have an idea what that might be?
I do have that, actually. So for every $1 million, if you take that amortization page that's in our budget books and then just take that mill rate, remember its amortization schedule is more aggressive in the early years, but if you average it out over the 20 years of a borrowing issuance, it's about $6 per year for $1 million. For the average taxpayer with two average vehicles, the same
Okay.
as we usually do. So that would be $120 over the 20 years. And so if you had 2 million, it would be $12 a year and then $240 after 20 years.
The other thing, I mean, when I was talking, I was thinking about this, and I just feel that, any large expenditure should be left up to the people of this town, and I would not feel comfortable having the ability to just spend up to $2 million on a piece of property without having our taxpayers be part of that decision. I know they might decide on giving us the ability to spend $2 million, but I would still feel more comfortable having our taxpayers tell us which way they want to go on something like that, before we just jump in and say, okay, here's a piece of property for $1.5 million. We've already gotten the approval on the referendums up to 2 million, so let's buy it. I think it's something that, as somebody who's elected by the taxpayers, it should also be some of those big decisions should be up to them as well. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Malone?
So this was something, Peter, that you had raised, and like Don, I am generally supportive of it. I think it's a good idea. I want to be clear on a couple of things. One is that right now, there is no specific piece of property that we're looking at for acquisition. Is that
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
There is nothing, but this puts us in a position to act quickly if we needed to.
And, and I know, there's, some general concern in town with the growth of the community. I mean, maybe we shouldn't put the spray pool in because that will stop people from wanting to come here. I mean, not jokingly, I mean, we continue to make the community more desirable, and that's why people
Yeah.
are coming here. Cheshire's a very desirable community. Go many other communities, the school-age population is decreasing dramatically, and we're in the opposite direction. And there's a reason why that is. Cheshire's been well-managed and is a desirable town. And I'm supportive of this, but it's just interesting because you acquire open space for different reasons. In this instance, there's an implication that we're acquiring or getting it prepared to acquire open space that might help curb expansion or growth in the community. Oftentimes, our open space has been acquired to protect natural resources. Do we have an agenda here for why we're setting this money aside, or it could be either or both?
No, and Mr. Kimball and I had a kind of a lengthy conversation about that because we want to be in a position, whether it's, like the house that came up on Wallingford Road that made perfect sense for us to go out and purchase. The house next to Norton School, which made perfectly good sense. Those were for much different reasons than acquiring the Chapman property, which has now become a fantastic addition to Bartlam Park. So, you want to be flexible enough to have it for, there's land acquisition, there's preservation of open space, and then there's, potentially agricultural. So, it really runs the gamut. So this is designed to be vague, but not for a reason other than it gives us the greatest flexibility.
Maybe just a point of clarification though on that. I think also part of our conversation was those prior appropriations that we had for the land acquisition account. Well, often the council referred to what's the balance in the land acquisition account. Those appropriations also included as potential uses municipal use in the language. So I think it is a decision of the council that you'll have to decide, do you want that level of flexibility, or do you want this strictly for, as this one is drafted, conservation, open space conservation and preservation purposes? You can change that, you can amend that, but I do think this will need to be a separate land acquisition account if we don't include language around municipal use, because the prior appropriations had that, and I wouldn't want that commingled.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Does that make sense, John?
No, and I didn't have the chance to read it, Sean, when you sent out the details. So this one is specific to not include for municipal use. And so we wouldn't be able to use it if a particular property came up that we thought was helpful for the community, operations, et cetera, but
Unless you change the language in there to include municipal use. That's right.
I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. I mean, I'd like to hear what others say about whether they want that included or not. But I'm generally supportive, Peter, so thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you, Mr. Malone. Mr. Velaber?
Question, is the number still 2 million? Was it 1 million? Is the resolution for still 2 million?
It's right now that for the sake of putting it out there for discussion, it's at 2 million. When the resolution gets read, we could certainly do an amendment if the council would, thinks it's appropriate that a different number is better.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Yeah, I mean, in general, I see the benefit from it. I mean, I do think that we've got to make sure that we're, thinking about what is it that we're looking at? If it's simply because now we've been, the council recently hit with this idea that the Cheshire being overdeveloped, and so this is being motivated simply by that, that issue. I think we do have to be a little careful, because we do have to worry about, we still need to make sure that parcels that are available for tax purposes continue to be available for tax purposes. Even though we have to make sure that whatever those tax purposes are appropriate for the neighborhoods and for the areas where they're being located. So, I do think, that's something that we have to take into consideration. But I definitely see the benefit of that. And I see, the language that Sean was talking about adding, I think, we do have to look at this, that it's potentially, if we're going to potentially use it for municipal purposes, then we have to make sure that we have that language in there. Otherwise, we lose that opportunity to take advantage of that. We have to go out for another referendum. But yeah, so definitely something to consider. I'm not sure 2 million is the number for me, but it's definitely something to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Kramer?
Thank you, Peter. One quick question. Is this number ever going to be voted on? Is this ever going to go to a referendum where the citizens can vote on it?
Yes,
And
that's
that's
what
exactly
we're
right
doing, we will do tonight, is we will discuss these and then vote on them and approve them. Now, the final number could be the subject of an amendment when it gets, once the motion is read and seconded, there could be a motion to amend either A, the language, or B, the dollar amount.
And when we finally decide on the language, including municipality use or the dollar amount, that will be on the ballot in November for the citizens of Cheshire to
vote
give us
on.
permission to have a fund for purchasing.
Yes.
When do these funds renew? Let's say we buy a property for $500,000, and then we have 1.5, let's say, in the coffers. Does that replenish to 2 million every year, every 2 years, or is this just a one-time?
One-time allocation. If there was, and we have the fund, it's got a balance in it now. So this would up the balance of that and give us a threshold. But anytime we wanted to go back and add money to that fund,
Any replenishment
it would
gets
have to,
voted.
it would have to be the subject of a referendum.
Perfect.
Let me clarify that. If theoretically, if we only asked for 490,000 to replenish, we wouldn't have to go to referendum, Sean, or?
Yeah,
because-
so at the risk of playing bond counsel,
Yeah,
they
I know.
ultimately help us make those determinations per the charter look-back language. As you'll recall, there are certain distinct projects like sidewalks that they will interpret to be specific sections of sidewalk that don't necessarily require the aggregation over 500,000. I believe historically, and we haven't done it in my tenure here, but I think with land acquisition, my gut would say if you added another 200 or 300,000 in, say, a subsequent year, it doesn't automatically go to referendum. But again, I don't know if you have a thought on that, Jim, off
Other
of
than
past
just
experience.
double checking with our bond counsel.
Yeah, we'd want to just confirm, but it's, either A, you could wait till the 5 years has passed, and then you could do, up, to your point, up to a 499,000 without going to referendum. But it also might be one of those categories that, because it's seen as being used for separate and distinct purchases, perhaps might not automatically be subject to referendum. But that's, again, why we have bond counsel, to make sure it's adhering to the charter.
Please.
We acquire land for a lot of different reasons. We won't necessarily be only spending this money on open spaces, correct?
Correct.
So we could purchase property. I know town council doesn't have a lot of say normally in how land is developed in town. And if property is purchased, who decides what that property is used for?
Well, it would depend on the wording of, and again, I'll have to ask Sean, the wording that's in this resolution gives us the ability to do what exactly?
So it might be easiest just to look at the resolution
It's on page 62.
and then over into 63. as this was initially requested following, like I was saying before, about the differentiation between municipal use and otherwise, this one is, just to be clear, drafted such that the only eligible purchases, the way this is written now, are as it says in the title, and then you'll see the referendum question on the second page. Resolution appropriating $2 million for acquisition of land for open space conservation and preservation purposes. So that's the title, and then you see on the next page that if approved without any amendments, it would read, shall the town of Cheshire, the voter referendum language on the ballot would be shared, shall the town of Cheshire appropriate $2 million for acquisition of land for open space conservation and preservation purposes, and to authorize the issuance of $2 million of bonds and notes to finance appropriation. So this one is tailored more specifically for open space conservation and preservation purposes.
So it would not give us the ability to do, for example, the house that was on Wallingford Road.
That's correct.
It
Okay.
seems like
The way
there's
it's
no
written now.
municipal allowance in this as it's written right now.
That's right.
Thank you.
And it would also, I think, this answers your other question, which was about municipal use. So that would be a municipal use, or if we wanted to put a school there, you couldn't put a school on land that was purchased with these funds. It's strictly for, yes.
And I do think, just one point of clarification, because I know we've used it as an example before, just for folks watching at home, Wallingford Road or the property on Jarvis were purchased with ARPA funds, not with the land acquisition
Correct.
account, just to be clear.
Yep. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a comment.
Ms. Pearson and then Mr. Jinks.
To clarify further, so, because you mentioned, Peter, agricultural purposes, is that something, I know there has been discussion in town about purchase of farms, for example. So if we were to add, is that something that we've had any precedent for adding or no in terms of open space preservational purposes or agricultural purposes? I'm thinking of the Cheshire Land Trust and Ives Farm. I don't know if that would fall under agricultural purposes or if that was
Yeah, so
preservation open
it
space.
would because I think under our definitions that we have under open space, and Andrew, feel free to jump in, I know you were working on this. The definitions that we have under open space and open space management has included agricultural properties before, if that's what your question is. So it's
Yeah.
not,
Agricultural properties would qualify under
would
this.
qualify. There you go.
And I just wanted to point out, a lot of flack came out from the way that it was written before, it would always say, or for other municipal uses. So for instance, the Casartano property on Marion and Jarvis, there's a lot of angry residents that property got developed because they thought they were voting on buying that property for preservation.
Right.
And then the town built a school there. So this would eliminate the town's ability to do that, which you may want to do or you may not want to do. So this would be to buy open space to keep it as just that open space. So it wouldn't be to buy it and then in 5 years build middle school on it. It would be to buy it to leave it as woods or farm fields or whatever the property might be. So.
But
Thank
ultimately,
you.
that's your decision. I mean,
That's
this is how it's
right.
drafted.
You can keep
These are
it as
draft
flexible as you
resolutions
want or as not as flexible
Yeah,
as
that's
you
a
want.
great
So it's-
clarification.
Yeah.
You would have to go back to
You'd
referendum.
want to deauthorize that appropriation because once the voters vote on something, that's
You can't, yeah,
you can't change the intent of the voters. So you would need to, if you're saying to change it back, you would be better off deauthorizing that or not spending that and asking for an additional separate appropriation for a different use.
Back to you, Ms. Pearson.
I guess just addressing the point that Councilor Walsh brought up regarding, the voters. I think if we put this to the voters, they'll be entrusting us with this. And if they don't trust us with this, then they don't trust us with this. So I'm not so concerned about the voters having to necessarily vote again, because once they vote, they will have let us know their perspective regarding this particular resolution, this particular appropriation. But we will have to be thoughtful in terms of, are we willing to be flexible and open this up to municipal? Because that's going to be read very differently. That's not the concern I'm hearing around town right now. I mean, what we heard when this room was full of people the other week was about preservation of open space and preservation and conservation of open space and agricultural space. So I will say, 5 minutes ago, I was thinking I would not want to expand this at all, because I think it could be interpreted as, well, then we're just going to buy municipal property for a school, and now we're putting aside $2 million to spend on a potential school, and that's not what a lot of people necessarily want. So I think we're going to have to be thoughtful in terms of how we articulate this particular resolution. And I think right now I'm leaning towards leaving it towards open space conservation and preservation purposes, because what I'm hearing is people are interested in open spaces, agricultural spaces, and if we have to come back for a school, we have to come back for a school, and that should be a separate resolution.
And just, you know, if I could just add to that, like when you're thinking about this, is that you folks won't always be in these seats. So if you approve this and there's a piece of property that's purchased over the next X amount of years, whoever else comes along, if it's written for other municipal purposes, they could very well decide that that property is going to be turned into whatever might come down the line. So,
Which
which
may
might be
not-
a good thing or might be a bad thing. So it's just
Right,
Just think
right,
about it.
right. No, thank you very much.
Of course.
Mr. Jinks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I mean, I think generally speaking, I like this, I like this approach. I think it gives the council, gives the people a little bit more of a say than we have had, especially recently in the growth of the town. You know, I think a lot of people are feeling like, you know, they're just at a loss for, you know, they just don't feel like there's any control. They kind of lost control. You know, whether that's right or wrong, you know, some people will feel that way, some people don't, but, you know, I think there's something to be said for that. And this gives the people some aspect of control in shaping the future of the town. We have a long history of open space, a long history of developing or growing our kind of open spaces, and farms obviously are very important in this community, very important to our character, important to our heritage. I think that if we, you know, there are already at least 2 properties that are, you know, perhaps, you know, not going to be farm properties at some point soon, which if you'd said that a year ago, I would have been a little surprised. So it's happening very fast. And I think that I feel like, you know, people are looking for us to do something, and this is something that we can do. To the question of whether or not we kind of modify this, I think I agree with what Fiona just said, mainly that, you know, we should leave it probably strictly as for this, the way it's written here, and if we need to come back for, you know, a property for a school or something else, maybe we can. There's a, you know, we have a lot of properties already right now that we don't know what to do with. I'm not sure that, you know, needing more property for municipal use is gonna the problem that we have necessarily. So, you know, I would be in favor of keeping it as is and also keeping it at the 2 million.
Thank you, Mr. Jinks. Obviously, I don't have questions for myself, but I will make a comment that along the lines of what the colleagues to my immediate right both just said. Based on the clarifications of Mr. Kimball and Mr. Martelli, I would not support an amendment of the language. I think the language is pretty specific and doesn't allow for municipal use. And I think the initial intent of the reason why I wanted this on there was captured actually very well by staff, and I should have probably trusted them a little more that they got it right the first time. So I would not be in favor of amending the language. Yeah, Mr. Malone.
2 more comments or questions. One's a question. One is, after hearing what Don said, I would be in favor of a slight reduction in the amount as well. Maybe not $1 million, maybe $1.5 million, something a little less. $2 million is a lot of money, and it'd be a substantial piece of property. And if we saw something that was that substantial, hope we'd be able to add to it if it were that. But it does put us in a position, even at $1 million or $1.5 million, to act on something of substance if it were come forward. The other thing that people discussed was this question of agricultural use, and it's complicated when you look at acquiring agricultural land for open space, because it requires, unlike woodland, it requires a maintenance component which can be substantial. oftentimes agricultural land also is well-suited for recreational use. And I'm asking a question, I don't know if I have a strong opinion yet, because this is all coming up so quickly tonight. Do we want to open it up for recreational use? In the event we are looking at agricultural land, it may be that we would want a portion of it to be used for recreational purposes, not necessarily general municipal purposes, but recreational purposes, if that were the case. I'm asking the question, I think it's worth at least vetting it out a little bit before we go forward, just to make sure.
So I will defer to Mr. Kimball and say if we said recreational use, does that constitute municipal use?
Yeah, again, it's difficult because we're talking about hypothetical properties in some ways, so I suppose there's always a chance, but clearly if the intent of the council or the future council that was using these funds to make a purchase had a specific recreational goal in mind and that the town was going to own it and be the steward of that recreational. I mean, I think there's a lot of crossover here. A lot of our open space properties now are recreational uses. There's trails across. We talk about that with mountain bikes on the Yankee Highlands Expressway open space property. So I don't know that I can answer it definitively, to be honest, because I think there's just a lot of overlap between open space and the ability to recreate on open space. So,
Yeah, I mean, Chapman was open, that was open space funds, was it not? The
so
Bartlett
the
South?
Chapman was a specific individual referendum, not a November referendum. It was a special referendum with a specific, I believe, $3 million proposal to purchase that property.
Okay, so it didn't use that open
No,
space language.
And I
in
think it was in, but it was also off, it was February or March or something. It was a different vote, as opposed to scheduling everything around the November, which is what we're doing here tonight. You always have that option too, under the charter, to have a referendum at any point. We often try to line them up with the November just for cost-saving measure.
So for example, I guess if going back in time, Chapman property came available, we happen to have these funds available, could we have used these funds at that point in time?
In the way this is written, or the way that it's
In the way that
usually
this is written?
I would argue no, but I honestly would have to talk to. I think there's a difference between passive recreation and recreation uses.
That I think you could have purchased it, but you couldn't have built exactly what we built there. I think that's more active. But it's, again, you'd have to get that determination. And then again, that's why that one was a specific purchase with the idea of developing it in mind, I think, at the time of the vote. So it's hard because here we are talking about a amount of money to be used on unidentified future purchases.
Well, I guess to go back, I would say that I would be supportive I'd be supportive of a reduction to 1.5. But keeping the language open space conservation and preservation, continue to, with that particular language.
Mr. Walsh?
I'm okay at 1.5. I'd prefer 1 million, but I'm okay at 1.5. I think it's a good compromise for me. I just think, I get the open space. I think this council and future councils will have to really make sure that if they're going to be using this money, it's going to be used in the right way for this community and not just to stop a development from coming in. It has to be used for the right reasons. And I'm just talking to the future councils from when we're all gone and dead and buried. I would hope that would be. I will support it at 1.5, but because I do think that we do need to have something in case something happens. But yeah, I just hope that the future councils are wise in how they use that money. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support it as is. I firmly believe that leaving this up to the voters is what is necessary. We've heard a lot of people interested in the town stepping in and helping to preserve some space, and I think this leaves it to the voters. If they want this, they will vote for this as is. I would prefer the $2 million, and again, just leave it up to the voters. If they want that $2 million, so be it. Thank you.
We all good with this one then? And we'll save it for when it comes around. With Mr. Massiana and Ms. Taylor here, I think we'll jump to the two school items, starting with fire alarm control and then moving into loading dock. Is there any, fire alarm control is on page 49 of your packets. And just, we'll go around, and if anybody has, I don't think there's we did discuss this, so I don't think there's a need for a presentation unless there's something specifically that you wanted to bring up prior, but we will allow questions from colleagues, so you may end up doing a presentation after all. So anything on the fire alarm control for the high school? Seeing none, well, you're 1 for 1 so far. The second item is the loading dock, which is on page 56 of your packets. Again, I'll give you the opportunity if there's anything that you wanted to say prior to questions regarding this project.
I will add just one piece of information that I don't think was made clear at the last meeting, which is the origination of the project really started with the stormwater management, which is the driving force of the project. Then on top of that, we need to remedy the loading dock, which is failing. It's been shored up so that it doesn't fall. And since we're going to go underground and have to dig up the parking lot to fix the stormwater, we may as well repave, add some parking spots to the extent we can. And then the refrigeration is the last component that we lost a rather large cooler several years ago. The demand for, food service isn't going away. So, this project is broad, but the roots were with the stormwater management. So we may as well remedy this problem that's been persistent since, at least 2015 with the stormwater issues that we have in that south parking lot. So this solves quite a few problems.
Mr. Veliber, I'm going to go to you first because I did not give you the opportunity if you had anything on the fire alarm system, but if you don't, then you can be first for the loading dock. How's that?
All right, well, thank you very much. One of my concerns after our last conversation was, I think it's this capital budget is, getting a little heavy, and adding this, and I was okay with it after the last meeting, but now we've added approximately $3 million to the capital budget that we talked about at the last meeting, and so I'm a little, maybe this is a project that I was kind of a little on the fence for, but I do think it's important to be done. But it's one that if I had to pick of these ones, to push to something till next year, this is probably pretty high on that list. But more importantly, the other thing I'm a little, I guess, I'm still waiting maybe to hear. We have yet to really pick up the idea that Doolittle School and the air conditioning, and it seems to keep getting pushed out, and it's not being addressed in the capital budget for their, and it doesn't seem like that the Board of Education has really made plans for that project in the near future, so that Doolittle's going to be sort of the only school without air conditioning when the other two schools come online. And so I'm a little, so that's something that sort of weighs on me a little bit for this in terms of the costs associated with this loading dock versus trying to get the other school, the Doolittle school, in line with the new schools coming online. And so I'm leaning towards at least either pushing this to the next year, or maybe we'll have to see how else we can rearrange some of those funds. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Milone?
Yeah, thanks, Peter. I was concerned about this at our last meeting, and Emily was kind enough to, Vin provided additional clarification on the need, and Emily was kind enough to meet me out there with Rich Clavette. and this past week, and I learned a lot about the project. I do think it's a worthwhile project. I do question a little bit the concept of the outdoor refrigeration and the practicality of that. I'm wondering if we're going to be coming back for a roof system in the near future, because it's going to be hard to get stuff in and out during inclement weather. But that, I'm not responsible for operations. It seems that's potentially a struggle for our workforce. But I think it's a valuable project. I think that, as David just said, though, I am concerned about the magnitude of projects we have, particularly ones that we're putting in front of our townspeople. And I don't see this, in my opinion, still at the level of others in terms of need, in terms of, from a safety standpoint in particular. And so I'm not comfortable with moving this one forward right now. But I do appreciate the explanation. I do agree that it's in the longer term, it's valuable. I don't see any short-term significant issues if it's put off a little longer, personally.
Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with both John and Dave on that one, that I think we are getting to the point where we're putting a lot of money in front of our residents as it is. I just do have a question, because Dave did bring up the issue of the air conditioning at Doolittle. Say, for instance, next year they don't have air conditioning and it's a real hot day and you have to close Doolittle because it's too hot for the kids to go. Do all the schools close, or how do they make up that day, or do they have to come in another day? I'm just curious as how that works.
We've never actually closed the school because
Too hot?
it was too
Just
hot.
close early?
We do have procedures in place so that, as an example, at Dodd, we won't use the second floor on those really hot days. And I do want to just point out that the Doolittle air conditioning, that is in the capital budget. It's not in year one. But more importantly, it's on the list of projects that we would like to complete as part of the energy performance contract. So that is clearly on the list. We'll know if we can get that into the performance contract. Probably October is when Johnson Controls and Energia will come back with the full scope of the work that can be done within the energy performance contract, but that was put as the highest priority with the energy performance contract.
I remember that, and that's my question. I just was curious as to what happens with, I know you close early. Do all the schools close early then? Even the ones that
No.
No, okay,
We
okay.
wouldn't
just-
do that.
That's, the other thing, the stormwater repair, whether we approve this or not, that still has to be done? And so that parking lot still has to be dug up and it has to be done?
Yeah, the project's not going to go away.
Well, is that a project that could be pushed off, or is it something that has to be done?
The reason I say no is because the longer you wait, the construction inflation costs will increase. The loading dock, we did shore it up, but, it's not a permanent fix in that loading dock. And we did go out, and the council approved us to go out with design money and get the project designed. So it is a project that's ready to go. I would rather see us go forward.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, it's
it has to go to
ironic that
referendum.
maybe just the last meeting, they came to us for $800,000 for the field, and that's $800,000, so it's kind of, do we go with both, or which one is, and that's what I'm kind of just weighing, which one do we have to go with more than the other if we had to choose one? And then, it's a tough decision for us. I mean, I'm sure you want both of them going forward, but, it's a lot of money that we're putting up for referendum right now, and I think we have to really look closely at some of these projects. But thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Pearson? Yep.
I'll just reiterate what I said last time, is that we keep deferring things, and they don't go away. And we already know we have a few years ahead of us of significant expenditures coming up, as it's revealed in the capital budget, looking at years 2 and 3 and 4. And as I've mentioned, we've only addressed 2 elementary schools. We still have a middle school and a high school to address in this town, and we have Doolittle Elementary School, as David, Councilor Velleber alluded to. So I am not in favor of continuing to defer. That's what prior councils have done. That's why we're in this situation in the first place, is decades of deferred maintenance. And so I know a loading dock is not an exciting or sexy investment. It's not like a turf field necessarily, even though they are the same expenditure. And I think we were convinced that we need both at this time. And it's unfortunate, but sometimes we are in this situation, again, because of decades of deferring these expenses, and we cannot continue to maintain that practice, is my strong feeling. So I would support continuing keeping this in this year's budget at this time.
Mr. Jinks?
So just going back to kind of the timing question that I mentioned with the earlier referendum item. And this is a little bit unfair because this has changed quite a bit since it was first in our books here. But looking at year 2 in our capital plan here, it looks like next year we would likely have window replacement at Highland as a referendum item, steam boiler replacement, and I think that would be it. Now, probably not, since we've kind of moved some things around. But can you guys think of another? Could you think of another large project that we have bumped from this year to next that would also be perhaps next year?
So we had originally proposed 5.04 million that we then deferred, so that we ended up with 2.5 million that we landed on and have it reflected in these projects. We also did an outlay for year 6 through 10, so some of our projects have gotten punted to the year 6 through 10 projects. So
Right.
it's kind of skewed all of our initial proposal. I think that those are the big projects for year 2, and I think another big factor was what is the energy performance contract going to mitigate from our capital plan? And like Vin was talking about, like the Doolittle project is huge because that actually covers windows, HVAC, and those are huge expenses that could be alleviated with the energy performance contract. So there's a lot of variables here, but I think for the year 2, the ones that you named are the big ones, but we've kind of played around a bit with.
Yeah. I mean, and obviously we don't know what next year's going to bring, but
Yeah.
We can't exactly be like, we promise we'll do it next year.
Yeah.
But those 2 items, the windows and the steam boiler, one's 800,000, one's $500,000. Which is less than what we're looking at. This year we're looking at 2 projects are 800,000 and one's a 1.1 million. So those are 3 very large projects. My thought process is perhaps we do maybe move this one loading dock to next year to give it a better chance of success, I guess. But I guess we don't really know what the voters are going to think. So what they're going to go with. It feels to me like they're more likely to do the turf field and the fire control system, and then maybe not the loading dock. But so it's a roundabout way of saying I'm not really sure what I'm going to do in terms of my proposal here. But figure that out in a moment, I guess.
Did I hear you say that potentially because Mr. Jinks was looking at potential referendum items for next year, is there a chance that the energy performance contract would include the Highland windows, and that would not have to be a referendum item next year? Very well done, Ms. Taylor, by the way. Subtle but effective.
It's a stretch to be able to squeeze that much.
Something that large. Okay.
Well, at large, that doesn't have a rapid payback. Windows
Right.
have a 25-year payback, so it's really not going to help add to the bottom line of the performance contract. So I'm going to say probably not, because we have prioritized the work at Doolittle.
I can hope.
Yes.
The only other one that that I thought of immediately, Mr. Jenks, is we always put the referendum item for road improvement. So that would
I
be
meant the
one.
schools in particular.
Yeah, oh, okay, I'm sorry, yes. Okay, further questions on those two? So this ties in with schools, let's move to the, turf.
Can I add one
Um,
more thing about the,
Yes.
the loading dock? So it's come up a few times about like, how long has this been in our capital plan and how long has this been deferred? So the first time we were allocated capital funds for the loading dock was actually 2021. We got $50,000 for the design work, which we have completed recently, so there was a little bit of time. But this has been a project that has been deferred, and I understand that there are priorities and, you know, we're making tough decisions, but I just wanted to provide that, as it's not a recent project, it's going back a couple years now, so.
Thank you. With regard to the turf, I don't know if anyone, the testing was done last Thursday. Do we have, and I see a
Yes, we
nod,
do.
so that would be great.
We do. We have a preliminary report. So what we talked about last time was testing, wanting that number to be under 200 for all areas that are tested, 10 areas total. The highest number from the initial report was 184, and that was in the center of the field. That's usually the highest area tested. So again, that 200, we want to be below the 200. It was at 184. And then the year prior, the highest rating for the center of the field again was 155.5. So
I thought I heard the individual say that the, kind of the average was 135 of
Yes.
the testing?
Yes.
What is, do you know, and
140.
with the highest was 155, now we're saying we've got a high of 184, what's the
Yes.
average?
140.
Okay,
So it's went up 5 points.
so it's
for the
gone,
average.
it's gone up and, but the highest number is significantly higher
Yeah, it's more of a
than-
skew, right? We're well
Yeah.
up 30 points with that.
And
middle,
you'd
but
expect
not
the
overall.
center of the field to be the one that, that has the most use.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Questions from colleagues, starting with Mr. Veliber, if you have any?
There we go.
Yep.
Okay, no, thank you very much for those numbers. I think this turf field, unfortunately, we haven't wanted to spend money on this, and it is quite, one of the most used, features, in town, for the school. I do think, it is going to be important, and those numbers show that we're getting kind of close. We're already well beyond its expected life, for this thing, and so we've been very lucky so far. So, I do think as we see that spike in the number, especially in the center of the field, I do think we need to start moving in the direction of getting, and preparing for a new field. And so, these numbers definitely show that they're not gonna get better, right? And as we've seen in this numbers increases here, and I think either in something that we read or either in an email that came to us, whatever, kind of like as you get towards the end of those things sort of, grow exponentially and suddenly you're out of compliance, and so, we sure don't want to be in a position where or next season or the season after that, we don't have a workable field. So I definitely think it's time, we've done great with this field, and, but it's time we start preparing for a new one.
Thank you. Colleagues? Mr. Walsh?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it did come to us quickly, and I was a little disappointed to find out that there was only $58,000 in the turf fund. I remember when 10 years ago, when it was, or 14 years ago, when it was passed, we thought we'd be getting almost enough money to replace it, or at least a good chunk of it. I would ask that the groups, I know they mentioned, they think some of the sports groups would probably donate some money to the cost of the turf. We still don't even know, because we have to put it out to bid. We don't know what the price is gonna be yet. But if we do get that money, I would like any, over the amount to go into this turf fund so we could try to start building that up, and maybe in 12, 14 years, when we need to replace it again, we have more than just, 6 or 7% of what we have to pay. I think it would be nice for, we get these sports clubs to give a little bit more each year to help the town out. I mean, it is a big expenditure, but, I also worry about the safety of everybody who's using it, and I think it's important. I mean, it jumped from 135 to 140 average. That 180 is something that scares me, because next year it's going to be over that 200. Just quickly, I mean, on a new field, brand new field, what is the number normally? Is it below 100? Or I mean, we hear this 135 or 140, but what's the? I know you're not a turf expert.
No, I'm not a turf expert, but what I did is I went back and looked at the reports that we had previously. So in 2018, when the testing was done, and these are just the overall numbers, so I pulled a few years. 2018, it was 121 was the average, and then there's lows and highs. In 22, so 4 years later, it was 138.7. In 2023, it was 142.9. Actually, it was a little higher than it tested this year. In 2024, it was 135. This year, it was 140. And, it's important to note that, when these measurements come in, there are things that we could do to help improve those field areas. So I asked Mr. Perusino, since we just got this report, to go back to RAD and ask them, can we make some improvements? So what they would generally do is come in, fluff up the field, adding some infill or sand, depending on what's needed, so that, this field is still usable and manageable. I don't want anyone to walk out of this room thinking, oh my God, it's 184 and this is a problem. It tested well below the 200. If an area did test at 200 or above, the remedy would be the same, to work to make improvements and then retest the field. So it's 121 is where we were. We're at 140.
Anyone else? Mr. Mylon?
No, no, go ahead.
So, thank you. My question is, where does this continue? So we have the track. What condition is the track in, and when is the track going to need to be dealt with, and what kind of dollars are we talking about for the track? Because is that next year, or is it the following year? Because this wasn't on our agenda for now, and it's being pushed to now. Is the track right behind us?
That's a good question. It's not in the capital budget, and just to clarify, the replacement of the turf field has been in the capital budget for,
Right.
I think, 5 years now. It was in year 2 when the board approved its capital budget, and now the council's considering doing that in year 1. There's a school of, the track's still okay. There's a school of logic that says if you're going to replace the turf, replace the track at the same time, but I don't think that's necessary. Mr. Perusino did provide some estimates of the track and turf together, $1.5 million, but that's a rough estimate, and I'm not even sure where that estimate is from. And we do have the study that was done that's been pushed out into year 10 to redo the entire, athletic complex to include lighting and new stadium seating. But that's a $10 million project, so I don't know if there's a track number in there.
The track number plus the turf was about 1.5 in the SLR kind of scope. They had provided 2 different options, one for about 7 million, one for 10.1. Obviously, the 10.1 would be kind of like all of the fields, but so costs have increased, but you're looking at a comparable cost to the cost of the turf.
So do you know if we've been spray coating the track to give it some additional life, or has that not been done?
I don't remember that we've done anything new to the track in the last 5 years.
Okay.
But it's holding up pretty well. It's a urethane surface. It can be resurfaced. The concern with the track would be if and you probably know this better than me, Mr. Mylone, but if the surface beneath that urethane is starting to erode and that needs to be replaced, that's where I think you'll wind up with a project of several $100,000.
Yeah,
But it's not in the capital budget, to answer your question.
I'm not an expert in this personally. My firm has done it, so, and so they are experts, but I don't know their opinion on this, quite frankly. I'm just concerned about it because, this was something we thought we weren't dealing with this year, and now we are. I am supportive of it because I think it's a safety issue, and I think the longer we wait, the riskier it becomes for injury, et cetera, and that's and there are people on it every day, as you said. But I am concerned about the track, and I'd like some understanding of whether the track has life left in it. If it could be, my understanding is you can extend the life by treating the surface. I'm not sure if we're beyond that now or we're looking at a full replacement. And it would be helpful. I know it's not something we're going to deal with this year, but I am supportive. I would like to make one statement, though, Fiona, because you say this a lot about that there's been neglect or things have been put off in the past. And I've only been on the council a few years, but to me, at least in my observation of how the town has been managed, I don't see that. I think there's been hard decisions made every year. I do know that there are literally millions of dollars in approved and unbuilt projects that past councils have identified, approved, and are still not built, and that money is out there. And so I don't think that there's been any neglect. And for someone who ran a business for over 40 years and had to make hard decisions every year, I never got everything I wanted. My staff never got everything they wanted. We always had to compromise, and I think we're in a period of compromise here. It's not a period of neglect or pushing things off. It's a period of making decisions and making judgment calls. And I find that statement that there's been past neglect something that I don't have personal knowledge of. And when I look at the finances of this town, I see a lot of past approvals that are still not implemented. So I think that's just an unfair statement, in my opinion.
Ms. Pearson and then Ms. Kramer.
I just want to say, having watching the schools and seeing the ages of our schools for how long we've had opportunities, 3 decades ago, to begin to think about the high school, and we did not as a community. And there was a need at that time to begin to create some kind of plan, and we've only begun to put together a plan. We only put together our school modernization committee within the last, 7 years? And so why did it take that long to put such a committee together to begin to assess what we knew was an aging infrastructure in our community? So I'm not talking about recent town councils necessarily, but I'm talking about the last 30 years. We have not seen the kind of planning that we are engaged in at this time. We haven't seen the kind of long-term strategic planning that we see in this community at this time. And we do have a plan in place, but we're also under strict financial, right, in terms of constraints, in terms of addressing these issues, in particular right now when we're seeing decreased reimbursement rates, much different than we saw 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago. And so all I'm saying is when we continue to defer and think that maybe next year it's going to be better, then we end up in a situation where we are now, where we have this aging infrastructure, and we have 2 new schools, which I'm excited about, but we still have Doolittle to deal with. We still have Dodd to deal with. We still have a high school. And if you walk into that high school, I know when I moved to this town and I saw that brand new looking high school, I was excited about that brand new looking high school. And it wasn't until my kids were in high school and I realized you walked in those doors and suddenly you're back in the 1950s. I felt I was sold a false bill of goods, quite honestly. And so I just know that we need to invest into high-quality products. We want products that are going to last, right, which is why we're spending the money that we are with our schools right now. And that's what I'm speaking to. And so when I see us beginning to engage in tendencies that put us into a position where we are now having to make up for decades of disinvestment and underinvestment, I don't want future councils to be in the situation that we are right now with this perfect storm, right, where we're having to address multiple expenditures that are all necessary. It's difficult to say no to any one of these. They're all necessary. And so I just want us being responsible stewards of our community. That's all I'm looking for.
And I have to continue to respond. I believe we have been, and I don't see that any past councils have not been responsible. And I have to tell you, times have changed, dynamics change. I can remember 15 years ago when I was looking to build a second building in Cheshire to support my staff because we were continuing to grow, that we decided we could not do that because there was no housing in Cheshire to support young people, and we had to obtain office space in New Haven so we could bring young people in that wouldn't come to work for us if we were in Cheshire. That's changed over the last 5 years. All of a sudden, young people will move to Cheshire because there's housing to support young people. We couldn't have predicted that, or I might have built a building 15 years ago knowing that would have happened. I think the implication that past councils have been neglectful, from what I've seen on the years that I've been on the council, is not the case. And I just think it's an oversimplification, and to sit here and to not understand or be comfortable with the concept of making hard decisions is something that I just don't feel is right. I think we have to make hard decisions. We can't just push everything to the townspeople and say, here, vote on this and tell us what you think is right. I think we have an obligation to bring to them what we think is in their best interest and let them decide if they agree. So,
And I agree with you 100%, right? I agree with you 100%. We have to make hard decisions, and that is exactly what we're doing right now. These are difficult decisions. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Kramer.
Back to the turf. I just want to make everybody aware that the turf use is not a straight line. I know as a sports mom, over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of change in regulations on when sports teams can start to practice and practice as a coached group. And the turf field is getting used more than it used to in the past. They're having more practices earlier in the year is extending later. So it's gonna be an exponential deterioration of the existing field. So the sooner that can be done, the better, because we're talking about the safety of student athletes. We're talking about community members that use the turf for soccer or whatever athletics they're allowed. But the progress in the amount of usage on this field can't be overlooked. It's getting, more sports teams are using it and for longer seasons. So I just wanted, I don't know if everybody knows that because it's a relatively new allowance that teams are allowed to have coached practices a lot earlier than they used to. So a lot more pressure is going to be put on this turf field. So the sooner we can take care of this as a town, the better off thousands of kids are over the next few years, safety-wise. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Mr. Velber, go ahead.
Thank you. And just a follow-up question, when it comes to the funding of it, and I'll ask Sean, but maybe Vin, you may remember, because I think you may have been around at that time. When the last turf field was passed by the council, do you remember, was it fully funded, or was it funded with the expectation that there will be additional revenue from other sources? I just can't remember. I wasn't around or wasn't involved in that at the time, so I wasn't sure if anyone knows. Did the council go to referendum with the idea that it's going to be fully funding the turf field?
Go ahead.
Okay. So when the field was installed in 2011, that was funded by a grant from DEP at the
Yep.
time. And it was 500 or 525,000 in that range. And the rest of the funds came from donations from different fundraising groups, including Gridiron, the soccer club, lacrosse, individual donors. So that's how it was paid for. What was also discussed at the time is to set up a fund in order to start raising money so that the turf can be replaced, eventually. And so the 58,000, I'm glad you asked that question. The 58,000 that's in that turf replacement fund is from the dollar surcharges that the high school has been collecting since that field went in. We do not take any other donations. That is purely the dollar surcharge on ticket sales. To the extent any organization might be setting aside, their own money, which Mr. Perosino mentioned, we wouldn't have access to that, the dollars or actually the information. So that's kind of the long and short of it, David.
So there was no referendum or anything on the cost of the turf? There was no?
No,
No.
no.
Okay, well, thank you. Just thought I'd get a history lesson on this.
Yeah.
Yep. Anyone else? Mr. Jinks?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my favorite topic of the night, the timing. I just want to mention, it was brought up last time we discussed this, that one of the reasons to do this now is because of obviously the longer window next year due to the movement from one school to another. So it not only is the field obviously deteriorating to the point we need to do this, but we really do need to do this now. I think the community will understand that. But I also want to point out, I think that Mr. Perosino had said, we've been talking about the 200 number, but I thought that he also said that a lot of schools start to be really concerned about it at that 165 number was kind of where it became a concern. And we're already like well beyond that. So just another reason why we should do it now, and I fully support that.
Anyone else? Okay, I'll assume or take the risk of assuming that we don't have any discussion on road improvement, the road improvement project, but I will throw it out there if anybody wants to have a comment or a question. Mr. Velaber, anything on road improvement?
No, I'm good on that one. I think it could be higher, but I think we have to at least keep where it is at 800. Thank you.
So seeing none, the only other item which may become a little bit of a talker is the fire truck, which is on page 10 of your packets. I did have a conversation earlier today with Mr. Walsh, so I will let him kick off this conversation and then fill in with what my recommendation to when I was talking to him was.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. At our last meeting, or a couple meetings ago, last meeting, I asked Sean about the issue with fire hydrants and what was going on. And because I know we did have a gentleman come to us and speak to us about maintaining fire hydrants during our regular budget. Since that, a lot of things have come up regarding the hydrants. And, I feel that it is time that we put some money into maintaining our hydrants, going through all 1,300, I guess, is what we have, fire hydrants, to make sure they're all in good running condition so that the fire department can get there and open the faucets safely and we don't have any issues. It's a matter of public safety, and I think, anybody who has a fire hydrant near their house is hoping that it's in good, proper running condition, and in order to do that, we're gonna have to put some money into it. So I would ask that we defer the $1.1 million for the fire truck at this time until next year, and put $400,000 into fire hydrant maintenance, so that we can begin looking at these fire hydrants and making sure they're all operable. We had a terrible tragedy a few weeks ago. The fire hydrant worked properly, so I don't want anybody to get worried about that. But, we do want to make sure that, if somebody's house or property is on fire, that the firefighters can do their jobs. And, it's nice to spend $1.1 million on a fire truck, but if you don't have the water to use from that, it's no good. So I would like to propose that we defer that for 1 year and put $400,000 into a fire hydrant maintenance.
Still getting used to the new mics. That was the, kind of the gist of our conversation. Mr. Walsh mentioned possibly deferring the purchase of the truck, which I supported, and I also said, it wouldn't be a referendum item, but we could then allocate some money in the year one capital budget that could be used for hydrant maintenance. I know that Mr. Kimball has done some, at least initial research with potentially contracting for hydrant maintenance. Is there anything you want to talk about at this time?
Yeah, well, just to be clear, so I've directed, Fire Chief Kasner to continue to evaluate a series of options. As I mentioned last time, over the last few months, he's been engaging in and I guess trying to bring to finalization a pilot program with the individual that we mentioned last meeting that had come to one of our prior meetings, who is a Cheshire-based company, and I think Chief Kasner sent this around in an email, but just to surmise for everybody, that there's at least a pilot program starting there to explore. But as requested, I've also, earlier today, did have a conversation with a representative from the RWA, put them in touch with Jack as well to sort of evaluate what they may have as a potential alternative option to consider, because we want to make sure we have the most cost-effective solution for ongoing maintenance going forward. So, again, I'm looking forward to hearing back from Jack with some of our options and recommendations, certainly in advance of, both the operating budget and now, if this moves forward, which I think would be a great source of funds to get kickstarted the rest of the maintenance program as Jack envisions it. So hopefully we'll have more from that very soon.
But again, I think the benefit that we'll have is the fact that we're going to hold off on approving the year one capital non-referendum items for a different time, which will give us a little more time to take a look at possible maintenance. And, I think right now, Mr. Walsh, that the 400,000 is probably the number where I would land too. So, but maybe we can, take a look at that as things progress. And happy to entertain questions from other counselors. Mr. Velaber?
Here we go. No, I'm good for right now, but I agree with that. If that's something, that we can do, I definitely think that the fire hydrants are important. I know that we had that discussion right at the beginning of capital budgets in the past with a local gentleman who came to office about that. And I think it's definitely something that we need to seriously put some, thought and money into, just to make sure that our hydrants are all up to speed and that they work when they need to work. And so if and so with some of these fire trucks, I think we're gonna be okay if we defer this 1 year. And it will also, that'll free up some money in the capital budget also to deal with some of these other projects that has been suggested. So I would be okay with that. Thank you.
I will say before I move on to other counselors that we did talk about very early on in the capital process, and it's something that Mr. Kimball has brought up and is certainly one of his pet peeves, if you will, and that is using capital budget for maintenance items. So my preference would be, ultimately, we may have to do it initially to get caught up, but my preference is going to be that this gets included in future operating budgets. So just as a precursor. And anyone else, questions, comments? Mr. Jinks?
Thanks. And I apologize, Sean. Did you say that Chief Kasner is okay with this, putting off the truck for a year and putting more money into?
I have not.
You have not discussed it with him at all?
This is today is the first I'm hearing
Right.
the proposal. Yeah.
It's obviously the truck is very important, as we know. There's a schedule to replace these that the fire department seems to think is important. I think that we've always supported. So I'm a little bit concerned about making this change at this late date. Certainly understand a need to service the fire hydrants as well. Have we, again, going back to the discussion on the hydrants, have we found, or has Chief Kasner, has the fire department found the hydrants? I know there are lots of hydrants in town that appear to need maintenance. I'm just wondering if we have regularly found them to be deficient or not operating properly.
Can I just say, sir, for public safety reasons, I would defer an answer to that question right now. I think it's something that, we don't want to scare the public into thinking that all our fire hydrants are failing. Then it's not. But I just want to make sure that the people of this town understand that, we do need to do some maintenance on them, and it's something
course.
that's important. But I just want to make sure that we don't put the fear into people that their fire hydrant, and please don't go out and test it yourself, please. I think it's just kind of for public safety. I would not want to put a fear into people here.
Yeah, I don't think I was putting a fear. I was just asking the kind of the status of the known status of the fire hydrants, if that's something that we know at this point.
Well, other than, I'll start it by saying, I know that there's, the gentleman that spoke at our
Right.
meeting back in April, there's a pilot that's gonna be launched to look at 40 hydrants. And we, discussed possibly increasing that. So I think that's going to be, that pilot kind of is going to be a random survey of 40 hydrants, and that will give us some idea of where we stand with the 1,300 that we have. But Mr. Kimball, anything beyond that?
No, I mean, I think that's correct. And again, I think as Chief Kasner explained during the operating budget, one of the challenges here in the funds that we do have for a line in the budget called hydrant repair and maintenance is
Right.
more often due to motor vehicle accidents, uninsured motor vehicle accidents, hit and runs of our hydrants. We've had more replacements than funds available to do the ongoing maintenance. And so I think one of the things we need to look at is bifurcating the two, having a regular maintenance program separate and apart from a repair and replacement program of the hydrants, because they're not interchangeable. And you need, you can't, it's harder to predict until the end of the fiscal year how many hydrants, motor vehicles or trucks have damaged. And as I think he said during the operating budget, each time we pay the RWA to replace those, it's like $12,000 to $15,000. So it can eat into a lot of the funds we do have appropriated in the operating budget. But I would, similar to what Chairman Talbot said, I would not be in a position myself to be able to say, broadly speaking, the condition of all of the hydrants right now.
Sure.
But I think part of this is to get a better handle on that, and more importantly, a regular program of annual maintenance so that we don't have to speculate.
But I guess what we're being asked to, right now, I guess we're kind of being asked to, we don't know the status of the hydrants necessarily before we do this pilot. And we're interrupting a schedule of needed fire truck replacements. So I guess that's just kind of where we are. That's the choice we're making. There was the unfortunate situation in Plainville not too long ago where the firefighter was injured and killed from breaking on the fire truck itself. So obviously we don't want a situation like that to come about here, and there's no guarantee it wouldn't, but I just have some concerns about interrupting, the regular replacement of the trucks. This one's 24, 25 years old, which is their useful life, without knowing about the status of the hydrants. I support doing both. We're trying to make decisions, so.
Anyone else? Ms. Kramer, and then Mr. Wolf.
So am I hearing that we don't know the status of the operation of our fire hydrants in town? There's not like a regularly done maintenance survey?
There has been repairs, but the maintenance of fire hydrants on a regular basis has not been done to the level that I think we should be doing it.
And even beyond maintenance, just surveying their efficacy. That's not,
Painting and, yeah, all that stuff. But that's kind of the maintenance. The maintenance in this pilot will be to go out, flush them, look at the gaskets, look at the, you know,
So
the
that's not
working
done at this time?
conditions and things that I'm not aware of that fire hydrants may or may not have in them, but it's going to be, it's going to look at the hydrants and give us a better idea of exactly where our hydrants
Do we
are.
know when the last time that was assessed?
We know it's been probably at least a decade, maybe two, before there's been regular maintenance on hydrants, including paintings.
Whose purview does that fall under, RWA?
Well,
Police,
we're,
fire?
no, because it falls on the fire department,
That runs on a volunteer basis?
right. But there's potential, as I started off with, of maybe contracting with either RWA or with an independent contractor that will do, and I think we lost Mr. Veliver, that we will do on a regular basis. Mr. Wolf?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I just have similar thoughts to Mr. Jinks on, this is something that the chief has requested because the engine is 25 years old and at the end of its useful life. I think he said that he's spending an extraordinary amount to maintain this one engine. And at this point, we're already waiting 5 years for another fire truck. So let's get this started now, and in the meantime, we can do both. We can take a look at the hydrants. We have no idea how many are in disrepair. But I think putting off ordering a fire truck that's gonna take us many, many years, 4 or 5 years to get is a problem. Because we don't know if that wait list is gonna, if we wait another year, that wait list could go out to 6, 7 years. I mean, we hope not, but we don't know what's gonna go on in this world. So I am for keeping the new engine one on the referendum list, and then taking a look at the hydrant maintenance, because it does need to be done, and it's honestly a little embarrassing that it's taken this long to go through all of our hydrants and make sure that they're functional. Thank you, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Anything else? Ms. Pearson?
I too am hesitant, only because, yes, the last one was ordered 2 years ago, and Chief Kastner said it will be 2027 before we get that. So if we're looking at 5 years out, as Councilor Wolf indicated and Kastner indicated, this current engine that is 24 years old, we're looking at 30 years, 5 years past its useful life expectancy. So I do see that next year we don't have any engines, it looks like, on the capital budget for year 26, 27. So that would be a time to begin to think about adding this to our OE, actually, as others have indicated, to our maintenance budget. But for the reasons also that Councilor Jinks, I was also thinking about the Plainville incident, which was the engine, and it was a fault with the ladder of the engine. And so I would be hesitant to put this off too much longer.
Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, just so everyone knows, the NFPA, National Fire Protection Agency, has said that fire hydrants should be maintained on a yearly basis. Flow should be checked on every 5 years. We have 1,300 fire hydrants in this town that have not been tested in at least 1 or 2 decades, like Mr. Talbot said. I think that is the most important thing right now. Like I said, a nice truck is good to have, but if they don't have water to put the fire out, then what good is a truck? I just feel so important that we need to really get these fire hydrants. And, I'm saying it now, if it's defeated, that's fine, but, if there's a fire and they open a hydrant and they can't get water, I tried. So that's all I can say.
I'm not sure I would have gone there, Mr. Walsh, but, no one at this table has said if we don't go ahead with the fire truck, that we will absolutely not do, in other words, it's either the fire truck or the maintenance of the hydrants.
Ms. Pearson just said that. No. She said next year we could look at.
Well, no,
You didn't mean it?
we have a We have a pilot program running now, correct? Is that my
Not
understanding?
yet. We're hoping. to
Well,
have-
we're going to momentarily. The contract is sitting with someone, so it's about to start.
So then we will have that information, and then we'll have that information on which to base decisions that we will make this following year. So I agree 100%. This is a clear need, and I was convinced of that when we were at the firehouse, and we listened to that presentation. So I agree with you 100%, but this goes back to what we were saying before. We have hard decisions to make.
Right.
It's not an either-or in this case, but I don't think we can give up this truck right now, given the situation that it takes us 5 years to get a truck. We're at already year 2024, when it has a 25-year, or year 24, and it has a 25-year life expectancy. So I don't feel we can put this we can't give this up for that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think it's either or. I think there's the opportunity to do both. So, any last, Mr. Mylone?
I just want to understand what's on the table. Is on the table a $400,000 allocation?
No,
It's not.
no.
We're not talking about that anymore, just the pilot program and the truck.
That does not mean that's over, but it means it's not a referendum item. So we'll take that up with year 1 through year 5 capital items that we will discuss in the future. And the maintenance will be included as part of that. But for the purposes of tonight, the only thing we'll be talking about is the truck.
Is the truck.
And voting on that, hopefully momentarily. You're good?
If it's on or off.
Yep, you're good. Yep.
I understand the concern about not putting off the truck, although it is put off by virtue of the fact that we're ordering it now, and we're not going to get it for several years. So we know that we're not going to have that available to us right away, no matter what. If we felt we needed it now, we should have ordered it 4 years ago.
Right.
And it wasn't on the table to be ordered, it wasn't requested, and Jack made the decision as to, I know he tries to push things out and minimize the expenses and maintain his equipment as long as possible. It's all good. I would like to hear from Jack, but I am not comfortable voting to move forward with the truck if there's not a consensus that we're going to go beyond a pilot program for the hydrants, if in fact there is an issue that they have not been maintained and there may be concerns with the hydrants. A pilot program pushes off the use of hydrants that are in some way not functional for at least a year. And I would rather know that we're committing to not just do a pilot program, but actually dig into that and do as many as we can, as quickly as we can, and not put that issue off if we're committed to ordering a truck. I don't see that as a safety issue can be made less of a priority. A pilot program, which tells us maybe about how many hydrants we might have problems with, all that does is tell us that we're not going to be fixing hydrants in any significant way if they're in need for at least a year, and that is something that I'm not comfortable with. So I'm just want to make that statement.
Okay, I'm still not sure I'm clear on that, but let me get some clarification and let me know if it doesn't answer your question. So the pilot program, the contract, Mr. Kimball, is where and how long before we could kick off that pilot?
Sorry. So it's with the fire chief still, and I think the scope initially was for 40 hydrants to be done twice in the year. We had a conversation just last week and again today to advise him that rather than we'd like to maximize the number that we're able to do. So rather than go from not having them serviced or evaluated for so many years and then have only a select few be done twice doesn't seem to make any sense to me. So we'd rather see that number be 80 hydrants or more. I would also clarify that pilot program contract is for $10,000, which is roughly $125 per hydrant per visit, because it's $250 per hydrant. But we also have available funding from last fiscal year that we've encumbered for this purpose, because we did have, the council had a 55,000 or a 60,000 over the last few years appropriation for, like I said before, all things hydrants, new hydrant replacements, hydrant repairs, hydrant maintenance. As Jack expressed previously, the challenge has been the unpredictability of how many repairs you have to have. However, we had a very favorable year in that department and encumbered while this contract was being negotiated, I guess, back and forth. We have about $40,000 or so that we've encumbered, correct, Jim, for this purpose. So we should be able to do, I can tell the council, we can do a lot more than that, whether we do it all with this company or whether we do that with RWA. Again, we're doing the $10,000 pilot program potentially could be multiplied by 4 if we use all 40,000 just for that effort, subject to bid waivers and all that kind of stuff. So there is some operating money now. I think we need to get it, as I said before, bifurcated, separated from replacement and repair versus annual regular maintenance. I do think, and I agree, that with decades of not having a regular maintenance program, I think some seed money would be welcome to kick off a town-wide evaluation and start to see, not just as you exercise the hydrants, but what kind of repairs are needed, if any at all. Sometimes you just need to exercise them, lubricate, replace paint. That's not very expensive. If there's pieces of it that have to be repaired, and we get a sense for what percentage of them needed something more in-depth than just exercising the hydrant. So, again, I would also defer to Chief Kaiser. I think he's in a better position to speak about this than I am. But I'm doing the best I can. But we are committed to the same goal, and I just wanted to assure you we do have more funding than just the pilot program suggests, both in last year's and the money you just approved for this fiscal year. But again, as we sit in August, we don't yet know how many repairs and replacements we're going to have over the next 12 months.
So, by way of further clarification, Mr. Mylone and Mr. Kimball, please keep me honest, but it's my understanding that if we can get this contract moved along fairly quickly, that the individual performing this pilot can do, and it's scheduled right now for 40, but that they can do 10 a day. So it would literally take 4 days to complete at least the 40 hydrant pilot. If we can extend it to 80, that would be an 8-day total. So we would know in a reasonable amount of time kind of where we stand with this random survey. That being said, until we can get into some sort of regular operating maintenance, I will tell you and commit to adding money in the capital budget, if necessary, this year to do maintenance of additional hydrants, if that clarifies for you, where we stand. Now, you and I are 2 of 9, but, that's where I am.
That's what I was hoping.
Okay. With that, anything else? Mr. Veliber, last chance? Good. Let's do some voting on item 3 then. We have 7 capital items that we will vote on. I will ask Mr. Jinks and Ms. Pearson to randomly pick them out of the pile and alternate the reading of those. And the first one I have is splash pad, page 65 of the packet.
Would you like to do the splash pad? Ms. Parker, right?
I would say, Mr. Chair, I think you can waive the full reading of the entire resolution if you would
Yes.
like.
If
but I think
we
it'd be
just do
important to-
if we just do the
salient
beginning,
points.
you don't have to do the whole 3-page reading.
Okay, so resolution FY 2025-2026 CEB number 33, is that where I am?
Yes.
Okay, resolution appropriating $585,000 for the construction of a splash pad at the Cheshire Community Pool and authorizing the use of $150,000 in state grant funds and the issue of $335,000 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Pearson, second by Mr. Jinks. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Veliber. Yep, raising a hand is good.
Okay, good, okay, can't tell what you really see it, thanks.
Mr. Jinks, then, do you want to do, pick one? The next one I had was page 62, which was the land acquisition preservation.
Resolution, so this top part first, right?
Yes.
Yeah, resolution fiscal year 2025-2026, CEB number 32. Resolution appropriating $2 million for acquisition of land for open space conservation and preservation purposes and authorizing the issue of $2 million in bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
Second.
We have a motion, Ms. Pearson, with a second.
Mr. Chair, may I make a motion to
You
lower that
absolutely
amount
may.
to $1.5 million?
So we have an amendment to make it 1.5. Do we have a second? Mr. Malone, thank you. Discussion on the amendment? Mr. Malone?
I don't, procedurally, I don't know. I would like to amend it to include recreational use as well, but I don't know if that could, it has to be a separate amendment.
I'll amend my motion to include recreational use.
So we have a motion to lower the cost to 1.5 and add recreational use. Ms. Kramer?
I'm amenable to the 1.5, but until recreational use is better clarified, I don't feel comfortable voting for that now.
Go ahead, Mr. Malone. Yep, you're good.
You know, my concern, and I'll just say, my concern is that we might end up with land, particularly if we're looking at agricultural land, that is going to be hard to maintain, and recreational use might be an alternative to trying to maintain a agricultural use long-term. But having said that, I understand your concern relative to clarifying it, and we haven't, you know, this is so new, we haven't had a chance to vet it out. So I'll accept that amendment and go forward with just the 1.5, if that's all right, without adding recreational use.
That's fine with me. I'll re-amend my motion to just say 1.5.
Are we okay, Mr. D'Onofrio, with? So the amendment is strictly to lower the amount to 1.5 from 2 million. That's been motioned by Mr. Walsh, seconded by Mr. Malone, and discussion. Seeing none, I will call for a vote. We are voting on the amendment. All those in favor? Motion passes. Mr. Veliber, were you a yes? Motion passes by 7-1. All those opposed? The one against, not abstaining, is Mr. Wolf. Which brings us to, back to Ms. Pearson.
Can I do the sprinkler?
She has the fire alarm control, is that what it is?
Mr. Chairman, point of
Yes, sir.
You voted on the amendment, but you haven't voted now on the motion as amended.
Okay. Is that the proper way, Mr. D'Onofrio? Or does the amendment take precedence over the initial?
Well, the amendment that you made, I thought was approved,
Yes,
right? So you didn't vote on the motion as amended, is that the issue?
yes.
So go ahead and vote on the motion.
Okay, so now we will vote on the motion as amended. Seeing no discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Did you want to? Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Veliber. Ms. Pearson, to you for number 3.
Resolution FY 2025-2026, CEB number 27, resolution appropriating $1,100,000 for replacement of the fire alarm control system at Cheshire High School and authorizing the issue of $1,100,000 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Pearson, a second from Mr. Walsh. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, motion passes unanimously by those present. Which brings us now to Mr. Jinks. That was the fire alarm. Go ahead, Mr. Jinks.
Resolution fiscal year 2025-2026 CEB, Resolution fiscal year 2025-2026 CEB number 31, resolution appropriating $800,000 for replacement of the synthetic turf field at Cheshire High School and authorizing the issue of $800,000 bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Ms. Pearson,
For the loading dock?
page 56.
Resolution FY 2025-2026, CEB number 30, resolution appropriating $800,000 for the south parking lot reconfiguration and related improvements at Cheshire High School and authorizing the issue of $800,000 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Second from Ms. Kramer. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3. Motion passes. Those opposed? Motion passes by a count of 5 to 3. The negative was Mr. Mylone, Mr. Walsh, and Mr. Villabur. Mr. Jinks, back to you.
Do the roads. Resolution fiscal year 2025-2026 CEB number 11, resolution appropriating $800,000 for the road improvement program and authorization the issue of $800,000 bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Walsh, thank you. Or Mr. Villabur, thank you.
Either one.
There's a delay, so your hand up went later.
I gotta second the motion before he's even done.
All those, discussion, seeing none, all those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Back to Ms. Pearson.
Resolution FY 2025-2026 CEB 7, resolution appropriating $1,100,000 for acquisition and replacement of a fire truck and authorizing the issue of $1,100,000 in bonds and notes to finance the appropriation.
We have a motion from Ms. Pearson, a second from Mr. Jenks. Discussion. Mr. Mylone.
I will be voting in favor of this motion with the understanding that there will be a similar commitment to aggressively deal with our hydrant issue.
I will commit to that.
Yeah, me too, thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. So we have approved all 7 of the capital budget items. Thank you all for your participation. It brings us to item number 4, the adoption of fiscal year 25-26 annual capital expenditure budget, which I would like to table, so I will entertain a motion to table to a future date prior to our deadline.
So moved.
Second.
Go ahead, Mr.
I
Walsh.
just want to find out what is the exact date, you know?
November
November.
20th is in the town charter, November 20th, but I think we're not, we're hoping to do it sooner, because I will just remind folks that some of the projects we have, namely community pool roof and some others, are waiting on the funding, so if we can see fit to do this in the next month or so, you don't have
Yeah.
to wait till November 20th, but that's
Right.
your deadline.
And I don't, that is not the plan. The plan is to do it before we get out of September. Okay. Thank you for the clarification. So we have a motion to table and a second. Further discussion, seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor, motion passes unanimously. Brings us, Mr. Kimball, to item number 5, the approval of fiscal year 24-25 budget transfers. And I know that Mr. Jascott is here, so.
Sure, I'll just introduce quickly, but, and just a reminder, in your packet, you also have separately the full departmental summary showing the expenditure surplus on the year of just over $1 million. So positive results from expenditure surplus standpoint this year, as the charter requires, and as Jim will explain, as part of closing the books, we have to take any departmental level projects, not individual line item projects, but departmental level expenditures, and make a series of transfers as we do every year, against contingency or any other favorable departments, which as I said, there's a total of $1 million there. So I'll turn it to Jim to kind of give a brief explanation of the total we're asking for the transfers to occur before the end of August. So, thanks, Jim.
So I'll just reiterate this, we ended up with the surplus of about $1 million. That's unaudited, so there may be a few adjustments. I know there's one for the fire department because we neglected to encumber some monies for the maintenance of the fire hydrants that we were just talking about. So, but it'll probably end up about $1 million. And these transfers are very much in line with past 5 years. It's the average, that it's right in line with the average amount of transfers that we've had historically, and is 0.02% of our whole operating budget. So, inevitably, we do have some departments that are over for various reasons, which I'll explain momentarily. So I think you all have a summary of the transfers in your packet, and I'll just focus on the right-hand column. The town manager's office was over budget by a little over 36, well, actually, in total, over $39,000. That was partly because they assumed the payroll for the economic development coordinator that got shifted into that department for this year. So you'll see in the left-hand column, there's a favorable variance for the economic development department, which pretty much offsets that overage in the town manager's office. The legal services were over budget by about $123,000. And I can honestly say there's obviously been a lot of legal work this year, so I don't know if that really needs any further explanation. There's a number of fairly small departments, boards and commissions that had, for example, advertising or program expenses that went slightly over, so I don't really want to waste too much time on that. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Public property or electric, our electric did go over budget. I think we had about a $290,000 budget, and it was over rather significantly. But I looked at the history over the last 5 years. Electricity does tend to fluctuate a lot from year to year to year. And from what we budgeted, we had several years in past years that were over what we budgeted this year. And I think part of it is we budgeted fiscal 24 had a very low year for electricity. And I think it probably swayed what we ended up budgeting for fiscal 25. But to make a long story short, we did go over. It's, things change from year to year as far as usage. And I also think that the transportation portion of the utility costs had exceeded what we were projecting. I know we're locked in for supply rates, but not necessarily what the utilities ultimately end up charging for the transmission. So inspection department was slightly over, and I think they've had some additional help there during the year that got charged to payroll. Human Services and Arts Place, both were slightly over budget in their program expenses. But if you look at their revenue side of the coin, they way over exceeded what we were projecting for the revenue. So these were costs, obviously, to provide more programming and in turn generate more revenue. So there is an offset for those. I have one more item here, the pool general fund subsidy. And in that department, Park and Rec Department, of which the pool is part of, was not over as a whole. But I only wanted to include it here because when we talk about the pool additional appropriation, which is coming up on the next resolution, we're going to need to increase that subsidy to accommodate the increase in expenditures in the pool. And I'll speak more to that when we do that, but I just wanted to memorialize the increase in the expense here with the budget transfers. So, you know, outside of that, we had a lot of departments that were favorable, which, you know, in addition to, you know, the generated that $1 million surplus in, I'll just mention a few of them: the Finance Department, the Police Department, Public Works, Engineering, Library. A lot of those, just to kind of keep it short and sweet, we had a lot of turnover this year. There were a lot of vacancies in a lot of these departments. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I know that the Public Works, they have a construction line item, and they didn't use all of the funds that were allocated there. We had some savings in technology for various reasons. I don't really want to go into all the details. I know one of them had to do with the new website where we were truing up the annual cost to our fiscal year, so we ended up a little bit ahead of the game when we kind of had a short year with the contract this year. So in all, I was really pleased with the favorable results of operations for this past year for, you know, very many reasons. But I don't know if anybody has any specific questions. I appreciate you taking this into the council agenda tonight. It does need to be approved technically by August 31st. And it takes a while for us to get good, solid numbers to present. So here we are. And it's an annual event to prove the transfers.
Jim, just looking at the general fund sheet, which was that one, this one that was handed out.
Okay, the summary.
The summary sheet,
Yeah.
the department summary. So at the bottom, it's handwritten in the BOE adjustment of 14 million.
Yeah, this is something every year. It takes us a while to get on the system, all the transactions and transfers for the end of the year on the Board of Ed side, to get all that adjusted on our accounting system. So we're basically just assuming that that's going to come in flush with what was budgeted for them. It might be a little bit different. We might end up with a little bit of a surplus there, but just didn't want to distort, you know,
Does
the reality of it is, you know, that will be adjusted.
Does this
With our year
take
closing.
into account encumbrances as well?
It certainly does.
Okay.
Yes, so all the encumbrances are included, and I know there's zeros here, and that's because we closed this on our system, so this is kind of locked in stone at this point. And so when we close out on our system, the encumbrances flip over into the actual column.
So can I assume then that some of the BOE adjustment of 14,694,790.75,
Right.
some of that is estimated that they will get to that number, but the actual details are still to be determined?
Absolutely,
Okay,
yeah.
very good. Questions from colleagues? Mr. Walsh?
First, Sean, please pass along our thanks to the many department heads that came in the positive. I think that's a good job by all of them. Quick question. Yeah, I noticed, Arts Place was down about 12,000.
Yeah.
Is that because is it more that they didn't get the number of people taking classes there, or do you know?
No, I think they incurred additional programming
Is that it?
expenses
Okay.
because they provided more programming than that they were projecting.
Yeah, if I could just speak on that, because
yeah.
it is a little confusing on the sheet. It's a negative 12,000.
Yeah.
That's implying it's over, but they spent 12,000 more than they budgeted.
Right.
So that they had more classes, and I think what Jim was saying earlier, and if we had the revenue side of this, you'd see they collected a lot more revenue to offset those expenditures.
So they did get
they
enough,
had
okay.
more enrollment and more classes
Okay.
than they initially budgeted for.
So they're doing better than we thought.
That's correct.
Good. Okay. I just want to make sure that's.
Good answer,
Yeah.
right, Mr. Walsh?
Yeah.
Anyone else? Seeing none and a shake of the head, we will get the resolution read by Mr. Jinks. You're doing this one?
Be resolved, the town council approves resolution number 082525-2. Be it resolved, the town council approves the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget transfers as presented and attached.
Motion by Mr. Jinks, second by Ms. Pearson. Discussion. Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Pearson, would you do item number 6, which is the approval of amendments to the community pool FY 24-25 operating budget?
Be it resolved, the town council amends the total appropriation for the FY 2024-2025 Community Pool Fund operating budget by $94,747 from $1,207,253 to $1,302,000. The revenue to support this increase will come from an increase in pool fees of $47,000, general fund subsidy of $30,206, and in pool fund equity of $17,541. Details of the line item amendments are attached.
We have a motion, Ms. Pearson, Mr. Walsh, was that you? Mr. Walsh with the second, thank you. Discussion. Mr. Jaskat, if you
I'll just kind of give a
would,
quick overview on that.
Yep, that'd be great.
When we were projecting during the budget process, I just want to point out that we kind of knew that we were going to be $100,000 over budget in expenditures.
Yep.
And we were projecting that we were going to have to use general fund subsidy to compensate for that. The good news here, I believe since then, the pool had their best year ever, once again, for revenues. I think they came in at $822,000 for the year, which was 20,000, more than 20,000 over their next best year since inception. So we were able to, and it was 47,000 what we had projected for their revenues. So we were able to increase the pool fee subsidy, or their pool fee appropriation by 47,000, and not use quite that much from the general fund. In addition, the expenses were, in the end, about 17,000 less than what we were projecting. So again, even less that we had to fund out of the general fund. So that's why the net amount increase to the general fund subsidy would be $30,000 to keep them more or less solvent with a positive fund balance, and that's where we are. So it's unfortunate that they were over budget, but they did have a lot of maintenance that occurred there during the year. I had a list in your packet that explained what some of those overages were in the maintenance, and included various electrical, plumbing, and other repairs. If you recall, they did a lot of work at the parking lot there to fix the lights. There was a lot of work done on shower walls, bathrooms. There were repairs to the UV light system. electric switch at coordinator for the kiddie pool. There was a new slide for the main pool and handrails in all the locker rooms and showers. So there was quite a bit of work that was done there this year in the way of repairs and maintenance. And their electricity count also was over, as you know, they're in the process of putting in a new boiler system there, which that should mitigate any electricity costs going forward. So, yeah, keep our fingers crossed. Yeah.
Exactly. Discussion, Mr. Mylone.
Peter, not having to do with that specifically, but since we're talking about the pool, it brought something up in my mind. We had on our capital budget money to allow moving forward with the roof repairs at the
Yes.
pool. And since we're putting that off, that decision off, is that going to delay the ability to get those done this year? Or?
I think it depends on how quickly you reconvene to approve those. So they're still planning to do it this fall, but I think if we can, that's why I was mentioning before, if we can get back together to adopt the first year of the capital plan in the next few weeks, I think there's still a chance they could do it this year.
I
That's
just,
the goal.
yeah, I know we were trying to not allow,
Yeah.
delay that another winter if we could.
I
And is
agree.
it out to bid now, Sean? I mean, based on the concept that it's on our, did we actually go to bid? I know you were waiting until you had better commitment on the funding.
It had already been bid.
It has bid, so we're ready,
We're just waiting for the money, yeah.
we're just waiting for the money, so that, so.
So
and they're
let's-
they're holding the bid still right now, and it's good for a while longer? Okay. I just want to make, if we can keep that alive and get it done this year, that would be great, that's all. I
So,
was just
yeah,
wondering.
no, your point is well taken. I think hearing that, let's add that to the September 9th meeting as a new business item. Can we do that separately from the approval of the capital, or do you have to do it all? We'll get back. If there's a chance to do it before we approve the full, we'll investigate it, and I'd be in favor of moving that to September 9th, so we do not delay that project. So, more to come.
I would think that you could approve it as soon as you want to. It'll just be outside of, all the other projects.
It might not be part of the annual capital budget, but you could just make a council appropriation and do it.
Okay.
Or, I don't know, I guess we could check to see if we can
Yeah.
make it part of the.
Give
annual
it some
budget.
thought
Yeah.
between staff, and if you think it's necessary or timing wise, there's a benefit to do it on the 9th, let's do it then. If not, we'll do it, when we do the full capital. Okay. Further discussion on the, pool subsidy? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion passes unanimously by those present. That is the last item on this agenda, so I will call for a motion to adjourn this meeting. Ms. Pearson, Ms. Kramer, second. All those in favor? All right, adjourn, and with that, we